or call us on 01733 310 115 or visit us at 11 Royce Road, Fengate, Peterborough.
You're listening to Peterborough's community radio, Salam Radio. Salam Radio. 106.2 FM.
Assalamu alaikum. This is your very own Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum for Salam Radio 106.2 FM. And this, of course, is the Body, Health and Mind Show. How wonderful it is to be back. It appears that I have been away for ages, haven't I? Or does it seem like I've been away for ages, but we've had a week in between? I don't know. You're the better judge of that. But like I said, it's wonderful to be back. I absolutely love being a part of Salam Radio and, of course, all of you. And I've grown up with this radio station. I started at least in 2015, and it's gone from strength to strength. I'm so proud of everything that the station has achieved. We have a wonderful group of volunteers. I always say that. I always think it's so important to talk about the volunteers. And that is why it's wonderful just to be here, just to give you news that is related to health, good outcomes in health, and obviously all of those topics are as well that are viewed to be ones that are associated with a little bit of stigma or taboo. And as you know, the volunteers and the directors put in an awful lot of hard work, and we are a station that seeks to build bridges with the various beautiful, wonderful communities here in Peterborough. So my name's Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum. I happen to be a GP who works at Bretton Park Healthcare, which is in the centre of Peterborough. I absolutely love my job as a GP, and I love speaking to patients, and I love talking to you as well. And as well as that, I think that it's really important to ascertain that anything that I bring to the show obviously comes with a disclaimer. So if you are listening and joining us today, please be advised that if anything that I say relates to you, or you feel that there is something that affects you in a personal capacity, do go back or revert to your own healthcare practitioner or your GP for further advice. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the show. But before that, I've got to tell you how to get in touch with us. So if you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook or Twitch, we are live and we are sharing those videos across our social media portals. And if you would like to ring us, because I always love to speak to you, you can ring us on our telephone number, which is 01733 602 133, or you can text us on 07411 191062. And you can comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, X, or Twitch. I did call it Twitter. Did I just call it Twitter? Sorry, it's X, actually. So yes, comment on X if you feel that you can. But before then, I always give a shout out, and I think that it's important to give a shout out to those people who make such a wonderful difference to our city. And over the weekend, I happened to meet a lovely, lovely young girl. And I'm going to share with you her story, but I'm also going to share with you what I really liked about her. Well, I'll share with you what I really liked about her at the end, but I'm going to share with you her story. And her name is Rikba Afia Majid. And she was going to Thomas Deacon Juniors, but will now be going to secondary school in September to Thomas Deacon Academy. So Rikba, if you are listening, this shout out is just for you. And I'll tell you why, listeners. I'll tell you why. Because Rikba, who I met, told me that from a very young age, she learnt how to sign language. So she would sign language, and she's not hard of hearing. She isn't impaired with her hearing at all. quite the contrary. She is fully able, she can hear fully, she can see fully, she has all of her senses, but she decided to learn how to sign language. And you know, Rikba, from a very young age, unbeknown to her family, was helping the children within her class. She was helping the children within her class to the extent that obviously teachers and teaching assistants don't know this skill. Some of them don't and many don't. But they helped her with actually helping other students who were hard of hearing. So the teachers would use her in the class to help those students. And that made me so incredibly proud of her. I was so impressed with her. And now I'm going to tell you why I liked her so much. Yes, obviously because of the fact that she was helping her fellow students with sign language. But for those of you who may know Rikba, she's got the most beautiful smile. And throughout the whole time that I was speaking to her, she never stopped smiling. She is a young girl who is so content with life and how she is. And she was, because she was bringing in things for me to eat, I'd gone to visit her. Her granddad is somebody very dear to me. And throughout the whole time, she did not stop smiling. And that she stole my heart. And that was the reason why I wanted to share with you all. So please, 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 massive shout out for Rikba and the wonderful young girl she is. And you know, she's going to go places. I can tell you that right now. So without further ado, we are going to talk about this topic that I've been thinking about. You know, every single week, I try to take examples of things that my patients are going through. And other than that, just other conditions that patients want to share with me or they would like me to do shows regarding. And I was sat there last night preparing for Mondays, as you do, relaxing. Well, I don't like, because I get Monday blues. So that's something that's really very much, it does weigh on my head. So I get a lot of Monday blues. So I decided that I was going to do a show on obesity or being overweight. And I certainly do see a lot of patients who have who have obesity, who are overweight. And I thought, well, why don't I do a show on this? It's very important to talk about it without judgment. I've got lots of patients who've come to me in tears often saying that they are subjected to judgment from people who they know, friends, family, women especially within our communities who other women will look at. They might be a close family friend, or they might be somebody who is known to them, who will immediately look at them and say, oh, you've put on weight, or oh, you've become fat. And that makes it far more worse to address the problem. I mean, if you do see somebody who looks as if they may have gained a bit of weight, there are ways of asking them if you are genuinely concerned about their state of health. And you can start off with icebreakers like, are you keeping well? I see. And how are other things? Is your health good? It's always good to start off with courteous questions such as this, rather than, oh my goodness, you've put on weight, or oh look, you've become really fat. I just find that incredibly personal, and it's downright nasty in many cases. So please don't do it. If you are listening to this, it's not just a health show. It's about bringing people together and also trying to put the world to right in a few places. So I hope that that's given a bit of an overview as to why I wanted to do this show, because I'm approached by so many women, and sometimes I do see women especially who are in tears about the fact that they cannot get rid of their extra weight. And it's not easy. Let me tell you that right now. Those people who tend not to put on weight doesn't mean that they will never become overweight. The human body is an incredibly complex network of systems, chemical reactions, metabolism. So it's very important that you approach people who have gained weight with an element of empathy and sensitivity. And if you can't do that, you really do need to reflect and question as to what your approach is generally in life as well. Don't be negative. So I always describe obesity very clinically and very factually when we come to describing what it is as a condition. And simply put it, obesity describes a person who has excess body fat. Okay, so fat is a material, it is a form of tissue and in the body. So an excess of body fat tissue within the human body can lead to an individual becoming overweight. All right, so there's a difference between being factually correct and actually somebody who is called fat. So let's establish the basics, shall we, before we move on in the discussion, because I think that that's really important to get it right, to get the narrative right. We really do have to get the narrative right. But the statistics are even more alarming. So we're going to put it up a one notch. The statistics are very alarming. And the statistics are that in the UK, around 1 in 4 adults and around 1 in every 5 children aged 10 to 11 are living with obesity. And I'm going to give you some even more stark statistics for the population of Peterborough. Okay. Now, I've got a comment here from a Mr. Adil Shabir. Thank you very much for joining. Welcome on the show. I hope you're well. Now, Adil, you have said, does cortisol affect men too? That is a fabulous question. I wanted to say to you in the second half of the show, I'm going to be talking a little bit about cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. When individuals have stress, there's an increase in cortisol, which increases their hunger and their appetite, and that can invariably cause an increase of weight. But not only am I going to tell you about cortisol, I'm also going to tell you how to address cortisol as well. So I hope you can bear with me on that. It's a wonderful question, and I think cortisol and looking at hormone profiles and the system in the body where people tend to become overweight is very important indeed. So I will address that for you, Mr. Adil Shabir. Thank you very much for your question. Now, how do you tell if you're actually living with obesity? So it's a calculation that is known as a body mass index that is calculated on the basis of your weight as opposed to your height. So the calculation between your weight and your height is done, and then a calculation known as body mass index is brought up. So BMI, which is known as your body mass index, is a measure as to whether you have a healthy weight for your age or your height, and also whether you are overweight as well. So there are parameters. Now, a BMI usually starts below 18.5. Anything under 18.5, you are underweight. Remember, it's a calculation between your weight and your height. Anything between 18.4 and 24.9, you're in the healthy weight range. So I usually like to say 25. So 18.4 to 25, you are in the healthy weight range. And from 25 to 29.9, you're in the overweight range. And 30 to 39.9, you're in the obese range, which is more than just being overweight. And if you are in a BMI range of 40 and above, you are in the severely obese range. So do remember those parameters, and also take the opportunity to Google BMI. You can if you know what your height is in centimeters and know what your weight is in kilograms, and please start measuring yourself and weighing yourself in kilograms. It's the metric for weight that is used nowadays. And there are so many patients that I speak to, and I say, what's your weight? And they tell me, oh, it's, I don't know, 9 stone. And I say, oh gosh, give me new money, please, not the old. So stones. On our NHS systems, we always measure people's weight by kilograms. So do. Now, when I was talking about statistics for Peterborough, 36% of individuals living with Peterborough, and this is just statistics from this year, by the way, from the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment reports from the council, that 36% of individuals are living with obesity here in our city in Peterborough. That is staggering. And actually, I would safely say that we're suffering from what we call in the United Kingdom an obesity pandemic. And when I tell you about the health problems associated with this condition, that should make you sit up and listen a bit more seriously. But let's go back to the questions. I must have had a sixth sense. Yes, because I am going to be talking about this in the second part of this show, Adil. And Adil then asked, I didn't know that this was something you were going to discuss on the show. Well, all the more reason for you to be here. And what a wonderful, wonderful situation that you are here. So welcome. It's great to have you. It always is great to have you, in fact. So going back to BMI and calculating, you then have the whole aspect of ethnicity. Now, if you are Asian, Chinese, Middle Eastern, Black African, or Afro-Caribbean, from an ethnicity point of view, you need to have a lower BMI score to measure whether you are overweight or obese. And I know that that sounds unlucky, but I'm going to explain to you why it's important for people of certain ethnic minorities to have a lower BMI. And I will explain that to you when I come to the complications surrounding obesity. So if you remember, previously, if you were between 25 to 29.9, you're in the overweight range. But if you have an ethnic minority, if you are an ethnic minority individual, your BMI has to be between 23 to 27.4. It doesn't have to be that. It has to be lower than that. But being between 23 to 27.4 means you are overweight. So just look at the comparisons. You are not overweight if you are anything but ethnic minority. If you're Caucasian or have a white ethnic background, then your overweight parameter starts from a BMI of 25. But if you are from an ethnic minority, your overweight range starts from 23. And if you are white Caucasian, if you're 40 and above, your BMI, you are severely obese. And if you're 27.5 or above, you are in the obese range. Okay? So that's just something to keep in mind as well. Now, the BMI score does have some limitations, and the reason why it has those limitations is because it measures whether a person is carrying too much weight, but not too much fat. That's the thing, because your body is composed of muscles, bone structure, the nervous system, and other organs of the body. But fatty tissue just plays one component of that. So that's the disadvantages of BMI. Some people naturally have a large frame and they won't look fat, but they might have a wider or broader bone structure, which makes them overweight for their age. Now, there are lots of other conditions, for example, Duchenne's muscular dystrophy or dwarfism, where you have individuals who have a wider frame as compared to their height, and they would be classified as obese for their height. So BMI is not a one-size-fits-all measurement. So that's one thing that I'd like to bring to your attention as well. But for most people in the population, BMI is a useful indication of whether they are a healthy weight or not. So there are other things that also can indicate why or if a person is at risk of other disease as well. and that is known as your waist to height ratio. So measuring your waist as well is an important parameter. And guess what? Measuring your neck circumference as well is also an important parameter, and I'm going to explain to you why as well. Now, the waist to height ratio measures whether you have any excess fat. That is what mitigates the reality of the BMI ratio. So it's very important that you check your waist ratio. So, have you ever heard of the saying, your expanding waistline? That basically means your weight to height ratio. Okay. So if you've just joined us, I am Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum. This is the Body, Health and Mind Show. I'm delighted to bring this show on obesity to you. And I'd like you to get messaging on 07411 191062, which is our WhatsApp number, or you can call us on 01733 602 133, and you can comment like we've had the wonderful Mr. Adil Shabir commenting on Facebook, YouTube, X, or Twitch. So do send those questions in as well. So how would you measure your height waist ratio? So you find the middle point between your lowest rib and your hip bone. That should be roughly level with your belly button. So that's the midpoint. So the midpoint between your hip and your lowest rib, that is where you should be taking the measurement around your waist. So you then wrap the tape measure around the middle point, breathing naturally. Do not hold your tummy in. So all of you who hold your tummies in when you have those photographs taken, and I know many people who do so, don't do that. Just let it go and measure your tummy. Honestly, don't make yourself happy. No wishful thinking here. Measure your tummy the way it should be. Take that measurement and then divide it by your height, measured in centimeters. So if you've taken your height in centimeters, the measurement around your waist should also be in centimeters. If you've taken your height by inches, the measurement around your waist should be in inches as well. So if I give you an example, if your waist, for example, was 80 centimeters and you're 160 centimeters tall, you calculate 160 divided by 80, and that equals to 0.5. Okay? So that means that your height weight ratio is 0.5. So if you have a waist to height ratio of greater than 0.5, that means you could have increased health risks. And that's why it's so important to talk about the health risks associated with obesity. And I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but I think it's so important to talk about health risks associated with obesity, because we do have such a high proportion of people who are overweight, obese, and severely obese. It's serious. It really is. And I spend my day job talking to people about the dangers of obesity. So it's a serious health concern. It really is. And it's one that we all need to take very seriously if we find ourselves in the higher BMI range, or if we have an increased height to weight ratio over 0.5. Now, what are the health conditions that we tend to worry about most of all? Type 2 diabetes, for example. That's associated with something called metabolic syndrome. And if you are of an ethnic minority origin, particularly Asian and South Asian, automatically through genetics, even if you weren't obese, you have a 20% chance of becoming diabetic and developing heart disease. Can you imagine the percentage of that increasing if you were overweight? So obesity is a risk factor for diabetes. And if you lose weight, then your risk of developing diabetes decreases as well. So keep that in mind. Obviously, being obese is a risk factor for heart disease, heart attacks, stroke as well. I speak to people all the time and I say, well, I don't want you ending up in 10 years' time having a stroke or having a heart event of some sort. So it's very important to think about your heart health as well. And the other major health risk that I really wanted to talk to you about was that obesity is the second most common risk factor to developing cancer, especially cancers of the breast and bowel. It is very important to make sure that you have a good weight. And there are other miscellaneous risk factors associated with being obese. And one of them is having fertility problems. I am seeing so many female patients who wish to conceive, who are overweight and are unable to do so because they are overweight. And in fact, a very useful statistic is that you increase your chances of conceiving if you fall within the normal BMI range. So if you're overweight and obese, you automatically, by losing weight, you increase your chances of conceiving or becoming pregnant by a staggering 30%. So just while we're entering into the break, I am going to leave you with that thought to think about, because we've spoken about what obesity is, we've spoken about the health and the risk factors alongside it. So it is incredibly important that we now, after the break, look at the causes of obesity and how we're going to treat it, with the ever important aspect of speaking about cortisol and how stress could also be a risk factor for obesity. I've absolutely loved the first half of this show. I hope you'll join me for the second half of the show, but that will come soon after the break. Don't forget.
You're listening to Peterborough's community radio, Salam Radio. Salam Radio. 106.2 FM.
At Master's Pharmacy, we put your health and convenience first. We offer free blood pressure checks and blister-packed medication. With our free same-day prescription delivery service, you can have your medication when you need it. We also offer travel vaccinations, including Hajj and Umrah, along with other services to meet all your pharmacy needs. For more information, contact Master's Pharmacy on 01733 567 208 or visit us at 303 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PH.
Craving authentic Desi flavors? Look no further than Desi Restaurant. From midday until 1 in the morning, enjoy our homemade specialties that will transport your taste buds. Indulge in tantalizing papri chaat and savor the rich Chersi Kadahi. Treat your friends to our fresh 1 kilogram Chersi lamb handi. Plus, get 2 12-inch pizzas for $11.95. Located at 298 Lincoln Road, we deliver from lunchtime until 1 a.m. Call 01733 555 795 now to order and experience Desi Restaurant's flavors.
Bite into something wonderfully tasty at Big Mouth, 349 Lincoln Road in Peterborough. Eating in for takeaway or delivery. Big Mouth now have a delicious new menu full of all your favourites. Crispy fried chicken, juicy smashed burgers, finger-licking peri-peri chicken, handmade pizzas, quality doner meat and so much more. So visit the family-friendly Big Mouth restaurant for fantastically fresh food. Call 01733 201020 or visit getbigmouthonline.com.
Are you a savvy shopper searching for the best food deals? Look no further. Adams Cash and Carry can help you save big. We're not just a food wholesaler for takeaways and restaurants. We also welcome household customers at our warehouse in Westwood, Peterborough. Visit our website and enjoy wholesale prices on everything from drinks to flour, rice to burgers and much more. To shop, go online and collect in store. Visit adamscashandcarry.co.uk today to start your savings spree.
Satisfy your cravings at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant. Enjoy a tantalising variety of Chinese, Italian, Pakistani and comfort food favourites, from starters to desserts. Kids under 5 dine for free, so bring the whole family to our restaurant at 63 Sycamore Avenue. Open every day from 5 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Call us on 01733 313131 or book online to reserve your table. Ibrahimi-restaurant.co.uk. Every bite is a delight at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant.
Masterminds Tuition Academy is for your high schoolers, your something to provers, your subject strugglers and keen learners, your brave jumpers and fist pumpers. Affordable personalised learning plans are delivered through our centres in schools across Peterborough. But not to worry, we also provide online and home visits with flexible timings. Whether it is maths, English, science or 11 plus, Masterminds is a must. Find us on all socials and visit our website mastermindstuitionacademy.com or call us on 07516 166 003. Masterminds, master the matrix.
For the top pizza in Peterborough, visit Top's Pizza, established in 1988 for delicious pizzas with freshly made dough daily. View the extensive and mouth-watering menu online at topspizza.co.uk, then choose from traditional tasty toppings, something different, or create your own with fresh 100% halal meats, salads, veg, and a great choice of sides too. Call into Top's Pizza, 52 Broadway, PE1 1SB. Call 01733 913 775 or order online for delivery or collection.
Welcome back, and this is the Body Health and Mind Show on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. Wonderful to be back. There is some great interest being shown in this show. I have had some questions that have come through, which I'll hopefully answer towards the end of the show as well. And some very special people who are listening in. And amongst them is our Adult Social Care Director, Stephen. So thank you very much for listening in. And I hope that you take away from this, but it's important. Actually, I will add that before the break, I was talking about how obesity is a risk factor. It's also a risk factor in those people who are elderly, and it is actually a form of frailty as well. There are so many people who are at home, less mobile because of conditions such as arthritis. They may become housebound because of stroke, and they also gain weight because of a lack of physical activity. And that is why such people then become deemed as frail. So from an adult social care point of view, there can be multiple issues that one has to deal with when you have somebody who is obese and is housebound, and they can, for example, develop pressure sores because they're lying in positions and probably not turned over enough. Again, we've spoken about the diabetic and the heart complications too. So some really important pieces of information there for you all to think about, and actually take your weight, take your height. And the weather nowadays is beautiful, although I know that we've had an amber warning for the country for thunderstorms. I don't know when that's going to start. Don't blame me on that. But actually, a little bit of rain in good old Blighty. We're all used to it, aren't we? We haven't had much of a summer. But hey-ho, there is no excuse. And when I share with you some of the resources that we can undertake in our city to help us with decreasing weight, you will thank me. So let's talk about treating obesity in the second half of the show and causes of obesity. There are multiple causes of obesity. It's not just eating the wrong foods. There could be underlying medical conditions that cause obesity too. So again, I'd love you to ring me and speak to me on 01733 602 133. You can text me on 07411 191062, and you can also comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, X or Twitch. Now, the causes of obesity are numerous, and obesity and being overweight, it is actually the most common cause of obesity is taking in those extra calories, particularly those from foods that are high in fat and sugar. Because how does sugar make you overweight? Sugar, if you consume it above the recommended dose, it then stores itself in the way of fat. So having sugar is a big no-no. It's also a risk factor for things like diabetes and high cholesterol, so it's a big no-no. Do not forget that sugar doesn't just mean the sugar that you put in your tea and coffee or sprinkle on your cereal or using cakes and biscuits and baking and cooking. Sugar is also a carbohydrate. And carbohydrates are found in foods such as pasta, potatoes, rice. So it's important that you limit or completely cut out sugar or have any sweet things such as chocolates, crisps, because these are also forms of sugar and they can store themselves within the body as fat. So sugar is a no-no and it does contribute to obesity. That's one thing that I wanted to say to you. The other thing that I want to speak to you about is our sedentary lifestyles and the fact that obesity can become prevalent as a result of us not being so active. So I don't like using the term in the olden days because I feel quite old anyway. I just think that my olden days would be comparatively not that old for somebody who's in their 70s. But I would like to say that before the age of cars or transport or even television, people were a lot more active. When there were no computers, people did work manually. And there are small, simple things, for example. I remember in the 80s, it was imperative that when you had a piece of homework, if you needed to go to the library, you would physically have to walk to the library, pick out whatever encyclopedia it was, and then look for the information that you needed. Nowadays, everything is available at the touch of a button. Lifestyles have become sedentary. People are driving everywhere. There are those that are using public transport. You also have the internet. So a lot more people are working from home. That makes your lifestyle sedentary. And when your lifestyle is sedentary, you have the potential to put on the pounds. So that's one thought that I'm going to leave with you as well. How active are you? How much activity or exercise are you bringing into your routine? Do any of you exercise? You don't have to pay a subscription to the gym. Are any of you active and going into going for a walk after dinner, for example? It's a wonderful way to digest your meal. So why aren't you doing it? It's just something that needs to be small little habits. When made consistent, can make a world of a difference. So there is no excuse for not doing even a little bit of exercise unless you are suffering from mobility issues or a medical condition that prevents you from doing so. Genetics, funnily enough, can also play a part in becoming obese too. So you will often see that families that tend to have people who are in the overweight or obese range will have a tendency to have children that then become obese as well. So it's important to think about genetics too. But it's not the only reason why people become overweight. And the reason why I don't want to blame everything on genetics is it is something that can be addressed and should be, especially with the plethora of medical problems that are associated with it. So you do hear me become quite repetitive in a lot of my shows, and the reason is because I'm trying to just hammer the message in. Becoming obese has health implications. So take control of your life today and try to address it. There are some out there that might not agree with me. There are some out there that think it's easier said than done. And do you know what? You're right. It's easier said than done. It's quite easy for me sitting behind a microphone telling you you've got to lose weight. But I can also tell you that with consistency, every single day, even if it takes you 3 years of doing the same half an hour routine and looking after your diet, there is no way you won't be able to lose weight if you don't have an underlying health condition, of course. So think about that too. Now, of those health conditions, I wanted to talk a little bit about having an underactive thyroid, because your thyroid gland is a gland that's situated in the front of your throat, and it regulates all of the reactions that take place in the body, including sort of metabolizing fat or breaking down the various it actually controls the chemical reactions in the body that are responsible. It makes sure that everything else is working in the body. So it's an important organ. And when you have an underactive thyroid, those functions don't help as much. And those people that have an underactive thyroid, part of their symptom is to gain weight. And if they do gain weight, it's difficult to shift that extra weight off. So I've got lots of people who, but it's not impossible. I've got lots of people who are hypothyroid and say, we just can't shift this weight off. It is difficult. It's not impossible. So again, consistency is key as well. And the last thing I'm going to talk about in causes of obesity or being overweight are medications. There are some medications, especially psychiatric medications, such as antipsychotics, that can cause individuals to put on weight. There are medications that stimulate hunger that cause people to put on weight, and one of them is steroids. That can cause people to put on weight. There is an antidepressant called mirtazapine. That has a side effect of people to gain weight as well. And there are some medications for high blood pressure or even diabetes that can cause people to put on weight, which in a way isn't really good if you're diabetic, because if you're taking a medication and you're poor control with your diabetes and you're gaining weight, then something needs to change. So if you're one of those patients who is gaining weight, your diabetes not getting better, and you've got poor control, go back to your GP and have a conversation with them about it. So before I go on to treating obesity, I think it's important to talk about this funny little hormone called cortisol. I don't think it's a funny hormone, and I don't think it's little. It does cause, as you can see from my laugh, that it does give us the fair share of problems in life. And cortisol is not one. I'm not a fan of cortisol, I must say, because cortisol is increased when you have increased stress. And when you have increased stress, it causes you, cortisol being a steroid, natural steroid that's secreted by the body, by the adrenal glands, causes you to overindulge because it stimulates your appetite and hunger. So it's important to try and control cortisol. And it's really quite interesting because cortisol can be controlled through a number of natural things. All right. So there are a few things that I'm going to tell you on how we can control cortisol. And the good thing about it is that cortisol, it does some important jobs as well. So it regulates our high blood pressure, it regulates metabolism. But if you have an increase of cortisol, that is when you see the weight gain. So it's really important to make sure that we regulate our cortisol as opposed to turning it into spikes where it's coming out. And it is referred to as the stress hormone. I will say that as well, but it's also important in a number of other functions. Okay, so don't go about indulging in anything that's going to suppress your cortisol, because that's not good either. So it increases your blood sugar levels, all right? And that's what happens in a stress response. So in a stress response, there are 4 fundamental things that take place. Your sugar levels increase, first of all. It causes reduced inflammation. This is cortisol itself. It suppresses the immune system, and it aids in nutrient metabolism. So all the nutrients that you're taking in from your diet, cortisol helps break them down through a range of chemical reactions, because it's known as the messenger as well. So it's also released in relation to the body's circadian rhythm, which is the sleep cycle, with 50 to 60% of it being released within 30 to 40 minutes of waking up in the morning. And then the levels fall throughout the day. And during times of increased stress, both cortisol and another chemical known as adrenaline are released from our adrenal glands. This then triggers an increase in heart rate, increases your energy levels, preparing your body for a potentially harmful situation. And the response is normal if you have a look at it, depending upon the stress. However, but if you remain stressed constantly, the cortisol, the stimulus of the cortisol, can lead you to gain weight. But how does it do that as well? So high levels of cortisol promote overeating. And because of that, you can then have another condition because of increased level of cortisol known as Cushing syndrome, which is a completely different topic. So I'm not going to confuse it with the subject here as well. So the following side effects occur with cortisol. We've spoken about weight gain. It causes high blood pressure. It causes fatigue. It causes a change in your mood. It also causes a puffy face. It causes thinning skin, difficulty concentrating, and insulin resistance, which can then cause diabetes and other conditions. Now, when you're under chronic stress, it's difficult then to maintain healthy eating habits. Some people completely don't eat at all, but then the other thing is that it also causes a decrease in your sleep pattern as well. And low levels of cortisol can cause weight loss. Now, how can you combat an increase of cortisol? So, to me, it's a no-brainer. Obviously, you address your stress, but how would you do that? So first of all, stay active. So one of the main ways to combat your weight gain and cortisol levels is to engage in regular physical activity. And all I'm asking of you all here is 30 minutes every single day, brisk walking. You can do it. There is no excuse. Even if it means marching on the spot, I do it. Why can't you? And I think I'm very busy. Actually, nobody's busy for 30 minutes of exercise. Even if that means cycling of your legs whilst you're lying down on the sofa, if you really can't bring yourself to go from couch to your 5K. If that's not in you, all I'm asking is regular activity, even if it's on your couch, but start from somewhere as well. And exercise helps. Practice mindful eating. Mindful eating, what is mindful eating? So it is something that indulges you to be fully aware of the processes of eating and swallowing food. So paying attention to hunger pangs, acting upon it. Don't stay hungry for a long time. Being aware that you are probably on your way to becoming full, just stop short of that as well. Being aware of the taste and texture of food as well. Just really appreciating your meal and enjoying your meal can combat your cortisol levels as well. I know it's fascinating, but it does work too. And do not be distracted in your meals. There is nothing worse than getting up, interrupting your meal, getting up and then coming back again. So don't do that. Getting more sleep. So sleep is very important. It's very overlooked as well. So if you don't have a good sleep pattern, your cortisol level increases. And the best way to get a good sleep, in my opinion, without any medication, is to practice meditation and mindfulness. And mindfulness is very important. Mindfulness can take place through breathing exercises. And years ago, I did a show on anxiety in which we did a mindfulness session, and I got listeners who were texting me saying that they had fallen asleep whilst they were listening, which was great. I recently ran a mindfulness session for some Unison trade union members, and they all fell asleep whilst I was sat there looking at them. So it's wonderful. It's a wonderful way to relax the body, to relax the mind. I do it on a daily basis throughout my work. It's very important. And I'm going to give you the name of an app called the Smiling Mind app. It's a free app. Please do download it. I share it with my patients. I'd like you to download it as well. Practice mindfulness. 10 minutes when you get into bed before you have any shut eye. Practice mindfulness. And that will, in time, decrease your stress and your cortisol levels. I can swear by it. The breathing techniques that it advocates, they're absolutely brilliant as well. So that's just a little bit about cortisol. Now, when we're talking about treating obesity, it is important to eat a calorie balanced diet. It definitely is, because if you don't eat the right amount of calories and you're eating or indulging in too many fatty foods or sugar, you are automatically denying your body of the important nutrients that are necessary to keep your heart and your health strong, and also your bones strong too. Because don't forget that an important but healthy diet needs elements of good fats, carbohydrates. Yes, you do need carbohydrates for energy, but not in excess. And also protein. Protein are the building blocks of your diet. So there is something known as an eat well plate that you can Google, find out the portions of fruit and vegetables that you should be eating during a day, minimum 5, maximum 7, or as many as you like, but make sure that you have a look at that eat well plate, and that is something that you can take guidance from. Apart from that, eating a balanced calorie controlled diet as recommended by a GP, or if you want to refer yourself to a weight loss professional. And just before I end the show, I am going to give you details of a 12-week program here in Peterborough that is completely free of charge, that you just self-refer to. It's run by Public Health here from Peterborough City Council. It is fabulous, and it's got tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 weight management programs, and I would highly recommend it. I am referring patients to it all the time. It is wonderful. Have a look into it. I'm going to give you the name and the contact details later on, just before we end the show. Now, it might be a good idea that if your lifestyle isn't helping obesity alone, and I always look at this as a last resort, having a chat with your GP about medication may help you. So I don't want to have to recommend any medications. There is a medication called Orlistat. I'm really not keen on it. I think that the willpower of a human being to bring changes into their life shows that you can do good to your body. If you only rely on a medication to lose weight, chances are you won't be successful. There is an awful lot of willpower that is necessary to try and lose weight, because it is easier said than done. Rather than have a look at it as a challenge, why don't you take the bull by the horns and decide that, I really want to take charge and ownership of my life today? And do not allow anybody to have ownership in terms of judgment over what you look like, how much weight you've gained. You are in charge of your life. So take charge of your life and say, from today, I am going to take charge of my life and how I look, how I feel, how I carry myself. And if that includes me working hard to lose weight, so be it. Even if it takes me 3 years to do so. That's the type of mindset you need to have. That's the type of warrior mindset you need to have, and not be a defeatist. That I've tried for 3 months, haven't lost any weight. I get it. But after today's resources and in today's show, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't. So my advice to you is that please, please, please do reach out to the organisations that can help. Now, there is an organisation called Healthy You Peterborough, and that is an organisation that has been commissioned by Public Health here in Peterborough, and it has, like I say, tier 2, tier 3 and even tier 4, and they are the system that will allow you to become subscribed to their courses. You can have one-to-one sessions. They might give you advice as well. There is a contact form, and the website name is Healthy You. So it's www.healthyu.org.uk/contact-us. If you want a telephone number, it's much easier. It is 0333 005 0093, or you can text Healthy You to 60777. So just a bit of advice with reference to, there is no excuse that you cannot lose weight. You can. it's very important in light of the risk factors and the complications that arise out of being overweight that you think about embarking upon a new strategy to change your lifestyle if that is what is causing your obesity as well. But just before, I don't want to leave this on a negative note, but just before I go, the other thing that I'd like to say is that people who are obese or overweight suffer from breathlessness, they suffer from increased sweating, they suffer from snoring, they suffer from difficulty doing activity. Conquer that inability to do activity if you don't have any other underlying medical problem that prevents you from being physically active. People feel tired who are overweight. People can suffer from joint and back pain. People can also suffer from low confidence and self-esteem and feeling isolated. Never forget those two parts. And also, for those of you who aren't overweight, please think about how you treat people who are overweight in any way. If you've become judgmental of them or commented on their weight, don't do it. Be helpful. Suggest to them, ask them how they're feeling, ask them how they are in their health, if they're okay. And they might usually, if you're somebody who's a good friend, they might usually give you what they're going through or whether they are worried about their weight. And if they don't, quite frankly, it's none of your business. So that comes to a close. It was just so wonderful doing this show this week. I feel a lot of energy. I must say that I've been feeling quite tired over the last couple of weeks, but on this occasion, I felt a lot of zeal, enthusiasm and energy. And that's the reason why I can't wait to join you next time on the Body, Health and Mind Show on Salam Radio 106.2 FM with your very own Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum. In the meantime, until then, I bid you farewell. I hope you have a wonderful evening and Assalamu alaikum.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.